Hey nerds! Welcome to the React.js full course powered by React 19 and packed with real projects. Welcome to episode 5, and today we are unblocking the magic of user interaction in React. We are talking buttons, forms, inputs, and click, the fun stuff. And in this episode, we are going to learn onClick, onChange, and onSubmit, controlled components and uncontrolled components, form tricks like validation, dynamic behavior, and smart resets, a full to-do mini project, and even a few pro dev tips most YouTubers skips. But why event handling matters? React isn't just about showing stuff, it's about reacting what users do. Think of event handlers like your app reflexes. When something happens like a click or key press, we use onClick, onChange, or onSubmit to handle it. So let's check how we can handle or catch a click event like a pro. Okay. So let's come into our app component, and here we have a button, right? Which will like it have text click me. Now to catch the click event, we have to pass a onClick function. Okay. And we have to use onClick keyword here. So whatever the function you will pass in this onClick event here inside the curly brackets, it will execute on click of this button. Okay, so let's do here alert. Okay, so alert, you clicked me. Okay, so like this you can catch click event. So now let's see if it is working or not. So let's go here. Here we do have button, and let's click on it. It should show alert. So as you can see, it is showing alert. Okay. So now let's go back to app component, and there is one more way to handle this click. So let's create a function directly and then use this function to here inside onClick. Okay, so let's create a handle click. You can name anything. Okay, I'll create a arrow function, and it should return an alert. Whatever alert we have, let's just copy paste it. Okay, and this. And then in onClick, just pass this function. So instead of directly writing your function here inside the curly brackets, you can create a function separately and then pass the function name directly here. Okay, now let's see if it is working or not. So let's go here, refresh it, and click on this again. So you can see that it is working perfectly fine. So that is one way to handle onClick. And just like that, your app reacts to clicks. It's simple, right? But it's how all interactivity starts. Now let's check how we can catch the change event. Okay, so suppose here let's create an input field. Okay, let's add placeholder, enter your name, right? And now if user tries to enter something in this input field, we want that value, right? So how we can do that? We can get that from onChange event. So let's use onChange. Okay, so this event will be using, and here it gives us the event when user presses or means in each keystrokes, it fires the onChange event. Okay, and it gives us the event object, and from event object we can get the value. So e target dot value means whatever the user will be typing in this input field, we can get that value from e.target.value. Okay, so now let's see by consoling the value. So let's type here NerdSprite, right? So you can see this on each keystrokes, it fires an onChange event. So you get the updated value from e.target.value. So here I'm getting NerdSprite. Okay, now let's go back to our project and let's discuss what is onSubmit. Okay, so onSubmit is an event handler that triggered when a form is submitted. So for example, when a user clicks a submit button or press enter in text input, the onSubmit gets triggered. Okay, so as based on the definition, it triggers on form. So we need a form, right? So let's create a form here and wrap this input and a button into form. Okay, so here to catch the submission of this form, we need a onSubmit event. So let's do onSubmit here. So onSubmit. Okay, as you can see, I'm getting the suggestion onSubmit. So by using the onSubmit event handler, we can get all the values and form submission here. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's on click of this, let's console something. So console.log. So this form is submitted. Form is submitted. And to trigger this form submission, we need a button of type submit. Okay, so let's give type submit here, and let's remove onClick from here. Okay, now let's go back to our localhost, refresh it, and let's type something. Okay, and let's click on this submit button to submit this form. Okay, but you have noticed one thing. Whenever I am clicking on this button, it reloads the application. Okay, so how we can prevent that? By using event.preventDefault method on. So in plain HTML, submitting a form reloads the page. I think you already know that, right? So React is a single page application, so we have to prevent the reloading of the page. So for that, we are getting the event object from on the form submission, and here we have to, let's do one thing here, wrap it in curly brackets, and here to prevent that form submission, we have to event dot prevent default. So event dot, whenever I'm typing, it is showing suggestion in as prevent default, right? So let's let that. So in this way you can prevent. Okay, so now let's see if it is working or not. Let's type something here, click on. So see, on clicking of this, I'm getting the form is submitted, but my values is stays and page doesn't reload. So that is how you can capture the onSubmit in React application. Now let's discuss what are controlled and uncontrolled components. So definition is simple. Controlled components rely on React state to manage the form data, while uncontrolled component use the DOM itself to handle the form data. So right now on my screen, you can see I have input, but I have not used any state to keep this input value, right? So this is my uncontrolled component, or else you can say that it is my uncontrolled input. Okay, so in an uncontrolled input, React has no idea what is being typed. It all handled by the browser. So even whatever we were typing here, right? So React doesn't know that there is some value. Okay, only browser handle this interaction. Okay, but in control components, React is in charge. That means you can validate as the user types. Okay, you can reset or manipulate the values. You always know what the current value is. Okay, so here this is my uncontrolled one. Okay, so let's convert it into the controlled one. Okay, but how we can do that? By using state. So let's create a state to store this input value. Okay, so let's name it as const. Let's give it just name of text. Okay, and set text, it will be setter function of it, and use state, and by default I'll give it empty string. Okay, so now we have created our state, right? So let's assign this state value to this input, and on change of this, let's reassign whatever the user have typed to this state again. Okay, so on value I want this text. Okay, and when user types something, means any changes happening, then we want to set that value to our text state. So let's set here, set text state whatever the it.target.out value is. Okay, so now React owns the value. You can validate or add limit or anything. Okay, you are the boss now. Okay, now it's mini project time. So let's build a realistic to-do input, not just a task name. Will include task name, email, mobile number, priority, it will be of radio type, and category, which will be a drop down. So we'll be covering all types of inputs in a form. Okay, so let's now come here, and here let's delete these things. Okay, also let's delete this onSubmit here, right? And this. Okay, now here let's give this a class as in to-do container, and we want a form, right? Then only we can use those name, input, email, number types. Okay, so but before that, let's add one heading here, h1. It will be title of our project, advanced to do list. Okay, now inside form, let's create a input to take task name. Okay, so let's create input, which will be type of text. Okay, let's add a placeholder also here, placeholder, enter task. Okay, let's give this input a name so that we can uniquely identify it. Okay, let's give it task and this. Okay, now let's create an email type of input. Okay, so let's just copy paste it so that we can add one more input to enter email. It will be type of email. Okay, enter your email will be our past placeholder, and name will be, let's keep it as email. Okay, so now we have two input, right? Now we want to take a phone number also. Okay, which will be of type telephone. Okay, so let's create one more input which will be type of tel, which is basically a telephone. Okay, now let's add a placeholder also, enter mobile number. Let's give it a name as phone. Okay, now let's create a priority radio boxes. Okay, so let's create a div here. Let's give it a class name of radio something group. Okay, in this div we'll create all the options. So let's create a label first, which will be of priority. Okay, and let's create a new label, wrap it here. Okay, now we want a input type of radio. Okay, so let's create input type radio. Name, let's give it, okay, let's wrap it first. Okay, so name, let's give it priority, and first value will be low. Okay, let's give it a string instead here, low. Now let's copy paste, like we want to give three options for user to select from radio. Okay, so one will be low, one will be medium, and one will be high. Right, now at last let's create a select tag, basically a drop down. Okay, so let's come here and create select. Let's give it of category, like we'll be storing category here basically. Okay, and this select should have some options, so let's create option. Okay, let's give first one empty so that it can show the placeholder. Select category. Let's create more options here, which will be basically task type. Let's copy it 3 times. So first one, let's give it as work, and value will be also work. And second one, let's keep it home, and its value also will be home. And the third one, let's make it personal, and its value will be personal. Okay, now we have, as you can see, these 3 inputs, and then we have the radio, and then we have the select. Okay, now to submit this form we need a button also, right? So let's create a button. Type of button will be submit, then only our form will be submitted. Okay, and let's add a text for this button, add task. Okay, right. Now let's see in our localhost if we do have all the input fields: name, email, mobile number. Priority labels are not coming. Okay, why? Because I think we have not added anything in the label. Okay, so it is after input we have to give the label name also. So low, medium, and high. Now let's check. Yeah. So we do have these three options, and also in the category we can select which type of task it is, like work, home, or personal. Okay. So now whenever these, right now it is uncontrolled component because we are not storing any of the input form fields into our state. Okay. So let's now store these values, whatever the user is entering, into a particular state. Okay. So there are two ways. One way is to create a separate state for each of the input fields, like for text type, like enter task, okay, name. So let's create a one state, and then for email let's keep another, and then for telephone, and then for radio, and then for category. Means I think we have 3 and 5 states need to be created. And there is one more way. Just create one state for whole form and keep it as an object. Okay, so let's create that. So const, let's name it as a form. Okay, our state. So set form, it will be its setter function, and use state to create a state, and it should be type of object, and in object we will keep all these values. Okay, so first one is our task. Okay, so let's create one task property, and here let's give it empty value right now. And also for email, let's give it empty string, phone empty, and on priority we would give priority. Okay, let's copy it here, and let's by default give it low, and category let's keep it empty for now. Name category empty. So these are our basic by default values which are setting for this form state. Okay, now whatever user will be entering in the form, we are keeping in this object, right? But after submitting, we have to store this object into a basically another state which will store all the task into as an array. Okay, so let's create another state of array type where we'll be keeping all the task objects. So let's create to-dos, and set to-dos to set it function. Okay, and use state, we want array type. Okay, that is one thing. Now let's come into enter task, means this task input field. So here we want an value, right? So means this state value we want to pass it as a value, and on change of this input we want to set that value to our state's task key, right? So let's give it value. Here what value we want to give? Whatever the form dot task. So form dot task means in this form state we have an object, right? So here we have task, so that will be assigned to is this input field value. And on change of this input field, I want to execute a handle change function. Okay, so let's create handle change here, and let's create now this function. So const handle change. Okay, so this handle change will obviously receive an event. Okay, and it will get two things, right? Event value and event dot target dot name, means from which input field it has triggered, will be also getting that. Okay, so let's distract them both from event dot target. What we are getting? Name as in for this name, task, email, phone. Okay, and the value, both the things will be getting here. Let's do one thing, console it here also. What is the name and its value? Okay, so now this handle change we can use in all other inputs as well. Okay, so let's do one thing here. For this email also, let's assign its value, which will be form dot email, right? This one. And on change of this email, we want to again call this handle change. Okay, so means there will be single function which will be handling these inputs values. Okay, so also for this phone, let's do the same thing. Value would be form dot phone, right? And on change will be calling handle change. Okay, and then here also let's do the same thing in this radio box. Okay, and on change of this, let's call handle change. Same, let's copy paste it. Handle change. Okay, but it will change the value, but here it won't reflect, means the radio box won't be checked. So we have to pass the state of checked. So checked prob, in checked prob, we have to pass when it should show as a checked. Okay, so when our form dot, where we are storing this priority value in priority key, right, within this object, form object. So form dot priority, when form dot priority is equal to what is the value we're giving it? Low. Then we have to show it as a checked. So let's add the condition here. So whenever the form value means priority value will be low, this will be showing as a checked. So let's do the same for medium and high. Let's copy paste here. Okay, and here let's change with the value. Medium will be here, and for this high will be here. Okay, now we can use this handle change also for this select. Okay, so here let's do the same thing. Assign a value from form object. So form dot what we have given for this category. Here you can see we have this category, right? So value will be form dot category, and on change we want to call handle change, right? Now let's see in a local host. Let's go to here, right? So now let's try to enter something in this task field. So task create, you can see it is just printing it as it is. And why it is showing as it is here? Means whatever we are typing, it is only showing in the console but not in input, because we have not set the value into our form state. Okay, so let's do that here first. So here, whenever this handle change is getting called, we are getting the type of field from the value or event is triggered and its value. Okay, so let's preserve also the old value. Okay, previous, and here let's only change whatever for means whatever this handle change is getting called. Okay, so then only that input field we need to means change the value. Okay, so let's do one thing here. Let's copy whatever it is there in our object right now and change the value for the event has triggered. Okay, so let's do here name colon value. Means suppose if we do have some values here in email, telephone and all the except this task one. Okay, and we try to change something here in task, then this set form will be copying the rest. Okay, and here in name it will pass task. So task colon value means task value will only getting changed, not the others or rest. Okay, so this is how we can set the form values. So let's check it now here in localhost. Let's refresh it and try to enter something like task name. So now we can see it is reflecting on UI. Also we can see this in console. Okay, so let's give it task 1. Okay, let's enter email and test enter gmail.com something. Let's enter mobile number, something like this. So you can see it is also showing the phone, and also email means our handle change. One handle change is basically working for all input types. So let's create select medium here, and also something from this select. Okay, now let's try to submit it. What happened? On the form submission, our app get reloaded. And why is that? Because we have not even used the prevent default, and also we have not handled the submission. So let's go back to our code, and here on submit basically. Okay, so on submit event, what we want to do, we want to execute a function name. Let's give it handle submit. Okay, now let's create this handle submit function here somewhere. So const handle submit, and as we have earlier saw that the onSubmit gives us our event. Okay, so let's get that event, and to prevent this application to get reloaded whenever form is submitting, we have to do the event dot prevent default, right? E dot prevent default. Okay, and now let's add one validation. If user is trying to submit the form without entering anything in our field, then we don't want to set the data to our this array, right? So let's add a validation here. So if first thing what we need to check, form means from form object, task, let's trim it, means remove the spaces. Okay, is means if from task means in this state, in task we don't have anything. Okay, also let's do this for each of the input field. Okay, so not form email means we don't have anything in the form, not form dot phone means we don't have anything for the form as phone as well, and also form dot category means if we don't have anything in these field, then just return it. We don't want to execute this function further. Okay, but here we have not checked for priority because we already defining a default value for priority whenever we are creating this form state. Okay, so priority will always have the value, but these form means these input fields won't have anything, so that's why we are checking only for this one. Okay, so this is one check. Now if we do have the values in these fields and users submitting this form, then we want to take that object and again save that value object into our to dos array. Okay, so let's do that. So set to dos. Okay, here use the rest operator to copy whatever user has submitted already, and the form state right now whatever we have on submission. Okay, means we are copying the already added objects and the adding the current object form state. So this will add our form object into our to do state, and after the form is submitted, let's reset our this state. So let's copy this, and here in set form this paste it. So after the form is submitted, we are just resetting our form state. Now let's go back here, refresh it, and try to enter something. But wait, let's console this here somewhere. Console to do what we have in to dos. Okay, now let's enter task 1. Enter your email, something like test@gmail.com. Mobile number, something like this. Select medium, work, and add it. So now you can see in to dos array we have one object, which is the one we have entered, right? And also our form is submitted. So now let's, instead of showing it the to do in separate console, let's show it in the UI itself. Okay, so let's go back here, and here after the form closed, let's create an UL tag. Okay, it will basically, now it is array, right? To do have the array. So how we can get and render the object from an array, we used to have the map function. So let's use that. So in to-dos array, okay, to-dos array, let's map that, and it will give a single to-do, okay, also index. Now let's parenthesis to-do and index, okay. And what we want to return? We want to return a list of each for each to-do. So in list, let's give key index, okay, and let's create a strong list. Wait, strong, okay. In a strong, let's show the task name. So to do dot task, okay. And after this, let's show the email also. So to do dot email, because as you can see, we already have these properties, right? Task, phone, priority, category, email. That's what we are printing here, okay. And also after this, let's print to do dot phone. After this, let's print to do dot priority, and after this, let's print to do dot category. Now let's go back to localhost again. Okay, it is throwing some error. Okay, we have not closed it. Now let's come here, try to refresh it, and now let's close this console and enter task 1. Email should be test@gmail.com. Let's add some mobile number, medium, and work, and add it. So now you can see the to-do item has been added and also showing all the details we have just entered. Let's create another task 2, test test2. Let's give it test2.gmail.com. Let's give it something like this. Let's now give priority to high, and work should be personal, and add it. Yes. So also the task 2 is also showing. So in this way, we can create a to-do list by using all type of input fields we'll be using throughout in our applications, okay, like the telephone, text, email, select tags, radio buttons. So we have used and covered all types of input fields, and by using those we have created a to-do application. Okay, now let's add some more feature into our to-do application. Okay, so here let me show you one thing here in localhost. Whenever I'm refreshing the page, I need to click again in this input fields to get it focused so that I can type something, right? But what if on the refresh I want this to be auto focused? So how we can do that? So let's check here. So for that, you just have to add autofocus attribute in the input field. So let's add auto focus, and that's it. Now let's check it working. So now here refresh it. So see, I'm refreshing the page, and automatically this task 1 is getting focused. Okay, so that's the one thing. Now second thing, now let's add some custom validation into these fields. Okay, so how we can do that? So whenever user is submitting, okay, we are checking for null, right? But let's check also something more. So let's do one thing, comment this out, and let's check each field, and based on the field I'll be showing different alert messages. Okay, so let's check first if form.task.trim. okay, if it is not there, means task value is not entered and user trying to submit the form. So let's show it. It's written basically an alert saying that task is required. Okay, now let's check for the email. Okay, so if form.email.includes @ means, and make it not, means if this form does not have, means form email basically does not have @ anywhere, then just return another alert which will be showing invalid email boss. Okay, now let's check for phone length. So if form dot phone dot length is less than 10, means whatever the phone number it is entering, its length is less than 10, then we want to show another alert. Alert will be phone must be 10 plus digits. Okay, and let's add one more validation for our select tag. So if form dot category means user not have selected form category, then just return alert select a category. Okay, now let's test these validations. Let's go to here, and now first try to submit it without entering anything. So our first validation is running for task, which is saying task is required. So let's add some task. Okay, and now try to enter. Now it is showing that invalid email, means we have not entered anything or we have added anything. So let's add just empty string without at the rate and try to submit. Okay, so this is the basic validation of input field of type email. So let's do one thing here to check. Let's make it only text type. Okay, and now refresh it, enter task, and here in email just enter something random and add. Now it is showing invalid email. And what if I'll add here at gmail.com something, then it should work, right? Yeah, now it is working and going into next field, which is for phone number. So we have not entered anything, so that's why it is showing please enter. So let's add some random digits, but it's not 10. So on now try to save it. It is saying that phone must be 10 plus digits. Okay, so let's do one thing, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0, and try to submit it. Okay, now our input field validation for phone is also working, and now it is showing for category 1. Okay, so now let's select category and now try to submit it. So as you can see, now whenever I have entered everything, then it only getting submitted. Okay, that is the one thing. But let's do one more validation here. Even though if user have not entered anything, but on submit, means on this button click, we are executing our handle submit function, right? But we don't want that. We want if user have not entered any field, means all these field, then I want to keep this submit button disabled. Okay, so how we can do that? We have a disabled property for this button. Okay, so let's add disabled, and here in curly brackets we have to pass the condition when we want it to disable. Okay, now let's go to here and copy the earlier condition we were checking. Okay, and just paste it here in our disabled condition, and now remove this. So now we want this button to be disabled if we don't have task value, email value, phone or category. Okay, if anything is not there, we want to keep this button disabled. Now let's check if it is working or not. So here, refresh it. Okay, so now you can see it is showing as a disabled button. Now let's try to enter values. Test at gmail.com. Let's add phone number, something like this. Priority medium, home. So now you can see it is enabled, right? So now let's click on this button, and yeah, it's adding in our to-do application. So means our validation is working perfectly fine. And that's it. Recap time, what we have learned today. So first we have handled onClick, onChange and onSubmit event. Then we have mastered control components. Then we have built a real world to-do application with form, email, mobile, radio and dropdown. Then we have added some validations, autofocus and form reset. Coming up next, conditional rendering and list. What if you want to only show something when there is data, or loop over items in your array? That's where conditional rendering and list comes in. And that's what we are learning in episode 6. Comment your funniest to do today. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share with your coding buddies. See you in next episode, nerds.